Last month will remain one of the most difficult months for the Deputy President William Ruto and his allies, politically speaking. Last month, the president forcefully took control of Jubilee Party against the wishes of his deputy. The president then went further and took control of the Senate and the National Assembly by removing some of the close allies of the Deputy President William Ruto. And last month is also the same month when President Uhuru Kenyatta entered into a coalition agreement with Gideon Moi without consulting his deputy. So it's one of the months which the allies of the Deputy President would wish to forget. And I know most of them are pretending that things are fine. The truth of the matter is that the president used last month to destroy and subdue his deputy, politically speaking. But what are some of the options left for the deputy president? In my view, the deputy president has very limited options. And I can say without any fear of contradiction that the president does not have any intention whatsoever of impeaching his deputy, the way most people had actually predicted. The president's intention was to simply subdue the deputy president. And he has done that successfully. But what are the options left for the deputy president? So today I want us to look at some of the 5 options which I strongly believe are the only options left for the deputy president. But before we do that, if you're bumping on this video for the first time, I want you to take a second or two and hit the subscribe button so that next time we produce a video like this, you get notified. Now, back to the main issue. Last month was a very difficult month for the deputy president. He was betrayed by President Uhuru Kenyatta, a man he believed was going to support him fully. I know that's a subject which most people do not agree to, that the president betrayed the DP. There's people who believe that it's actually the DP who betrayed the president. And the same month, the allies of the deputy president himself betrayed him. You go to people like Millicent Omanga, the senators betraying the deputy president. And today I was seeing the allies of the DP calling for a press conference. And from the body language and from the number which turned up for that press conference, I really pitied the deputy president for the first time. It was clear from those photos that this is a team which has been outwitted, outnumbered, and outfoxed. And none other than Rashid Echesa, a man who was one of the key pillars of the deputy president, made a very important statement, politically speaking. According to Rashid Mohammed, William Ruto is a general whose team are being kicked left, right, and center, and is doing nothing. Personally, that statement means a lot. But of course, we are in politics, and politics is a dirty game. Now, let's go straight to the 5 options, which I think the DP still can play. The first one, in my view, is that the deputy president can still decide to play victim card. Remember, Daniel Toroitich arap Moi was in the same situation where the deputy president is currently in. Moi was the vice president to the late Mzee Jomo Kenyatta. But people around Mzee Jomo Kenyatta were not comfortable with Moi succeeding Mzee Kenyatta. But as luck would have it, Mzee Kenyatta died in office, and Moi, as the vice president, automatically took over. And the moment he took over, he managed to maneuver his ways, and Moi served this country as the president for around 24 good years. So for the DP, I'm not sure whether the situation is the same for him, but he can play that victim card. But the only problem with this country is that votes don't count. People can be sympathetic to you and turn and vote for you. But if you don't have the system, you cannot become the president. So I think the deputy president must just continue playing that victim card in the hope that elections in 2022 are going to be free and fair. But the only bad thing, which is unfortunate for the DP and his team, is that they refused to pursue electoral reforms and electoral justices. And that's why yesterday, someone like Susan Kihika was asking where the civil society have gone in this country. And the response to her were fast and furious. People reminded Susan Kihika and the team and how they branded the civil society in this country as evil society. But in my view, the DP must learn something from Zemoi. Let him play victim card. Watu wamkalie tu. But the problem is that can also not work, because what kind of a person? I know most Tanga people, especially members of parliament, are already claiming that supporting DP is difficult because when you are being targeted, he doesn't come through for you. But again, that's the only card he can play now. Number one, let the DP play victim card. Number two, which in my view is actually one of the best options, but very risky. The deputy president can then decide to do the unthinkable, to resign from government. But the question is, can William Ruto survive outside government? This is a man who rose directly from the university as a CU member into the Youth for Kano, funded fully by the government. From there, he went and was elected as a member of parliament for Eldoret North. From Eldoret North, this guy went straight to assistant minister, and later on as a cabinet, as a minister, full minister. So this is a man who has not survived outside the government. The only time he almost survived outside the government was when he joined ODM party. And again, in ODM party, once they missed the government, the deputy president slowly drifted towards the government. But the best option for me is for him to decide and resign. Then he can now be a free man. If he resigns today, he will not be blamed for the problems facing this country. Kenyans will forget. Kenyans will say, okay, this guy, he believes things are not going right. Then again, he will have credibility. People will take him seriously. And that sympathy, which I was talking about, can easily come. But whether the DP can actually agree to resign is something which I still don't know. The third option for me is for the deputy president to oppose the Building Bridges initiative. BBI is coming, and Kenyans are headed for an election. The deputy president has always bragged of numbers in parliament, but those numbers were disapproved. He doesn't have numbers in parliament. Then the deputy president are now claiming that they have numbers kwa wananchi. So the best way to test this is to go against a combined force of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta and face them in a referendum. Because one thing I know for sure, Kenyans are really tired with this government. And because Kenyans are tired with this government, they can easily decide to shoot down that referendum. And even if they will not succeed in shooting it down, large number of Kenyans can actually vote against that referendum. So they just need someone to help them galvanize that support. Remember, the deputy president, William Ruto, is the person he is today because he opposed the referendum in 2010. That's actually propelled him. He was able to take face of that campaign. So if he can decide today to oppose that BBI, convince Musalia Mudavadi and maybe Kalonzo Musyoka and team up, then from there, after the referendum, then two camps will now be clear. So you can now start pursuing. If he's defeated, then you will know this area I was defeated because of this, and then start planning 2022 towards that. So that's number 3 in my view. Number 4 is to boycott altogether the 2022 general election. I know ni ngumu and it's very difficult. But 2022, in my view, if you ask me, is already predetermined based on what is happening. The president is keen on staying in power. Raila Odinga is also keen on joining the government. And because these two guys have been enemies, and William Ruto is now their common enemy, so they've become friends. And a combination of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila Odinga, in my view, is a lethal combination. So it's not going to be easy to defeat them. Now they have the system. Remember, Raila Odinga has always won elections in this country without the system. Now, Raila Odinga going into an election with Uhuru Kenyatta and the system fully behind them. How is the deputy president going to defeat them? The best way is for him to boycott that election. 5 years is not a long time. Then after boycotting that election in 2022, then he can make a political comeback after 2022 general election. It's one, I know it's very unpopular because there are so many governors, there are so many people who want to become MPs, there are so many people who want to become senators, and their hope are on one man, William Samoei Ruto, especially those from Central Kenya and those from Rift Valley. Let's talk of Rift Valley. Any person who wants to become a governor, senator in that region will fully depend on the deputy president. But if the DP will decide today to boycott that 2022 general election, it's going to change the equation. So probably if these guys were planning to team up, then you'll find now Gideon Moi deciding to run the other side, someone there. Then the DP can now start focusing on 2022. So let's say if the system wants Raila Odinga to be a ceremonial president, then he can serve that term. Then I'm sure after that, he'll be an old man. Uhuru's influence shall have also been reduced. So the DP can then decide to make a political comeback, a serious one, and win the presidency in 2027. And lastly, is what I can call the surrender tactics. In the art of war, you only go to a war when you are sure of a win. When in doubt, there's no need of entering that war. And again, surrender is a tactic. You can actually just pretend that these guys have subdued you. So between now and 2022, Ruto should actually pretend to surrender. Look, let me just give you a typical example. When the president was targeting to remove the removal of Kipchumba Murkomen and Susan Keika, he convened Jubilee Parliamentary Group meeting for the senators at State House. During that meeting, the deputy president did not attend. He also mobilized several senators not to attend that meeting. So they didn't attend. Now, the other time, now after that, the president organized another meeting, parliamentary group meeting, but not for members of parliament. The DP then decided to attend that meeting. And he was there, he invited the president to speak. That's not surrender. His presence there was even questionable. In fact, I strongly believe that the lecture the president gave those members of parliament were actually directed or as a result of the presence of the deputy president William Ruto. There is no way you can insult somebody, abuse somebody, brand him all names. He calls for a meeting, you tell people not to attend, then he gets his way, makes changes the way he wanted, because so many people betrayed you and attended the meeting. Then you organize another one, and you realize that you are losing. Then you attend that meeting. And you want to assume that the president is just happy with what the deputy president was doing. No way. So the DP can decide now to surrender. Just go kneel before the president. I am not talking of literally kneeling, because no man should actually kneel before any other man. But I'm saying he can go to assume that he has surrendered to the president. Probably that's why what he's doing with the members of parliament who are being kicked out, and he's doing nothing. So once he does that, the president will not stop fighting him because they'll believe the guy is already subdued. Then once that's done, then he can make a comeback. Maybe after the referendum, or maybe within certain period of time. But in my view, those are the options the DP has. The first option is to play the victim card. Number 2 is to resign. Number 3 is to oppose the Building Bridges initiative, because if you will be on the other side, this team will be the other side. And because Kenyans are tired with the Jubilee government, Kenyans are tired with the performance of the president, they can decide to oppose it. Number 4 is to boycott the 2023 general election. You can just decide, okay, what yende? Because of course it's headed for a defeat in my view. He can't defeat the system. And lastly, he can just decide to surrender. I don't know what you think. Thank you guys. And if you're bumping on this video for the first time, I want you to just take a second or two and hit the subscribe button. And to the subscribers, I want to continue to thank you guys for your continued support. Without that support, this channel cannot be where it is. Thank you guys, and please, may you have a good day. By the way, don't forget to always check vuguvugu.com. Thank you guys, and please have a good day. Before I forget, help me create interactions. Give the video a thumbs up. Share the videos in the groups you are in, WhatsApp, any other group. Leave your comment. Bye-bye.